Morning comic book fans, welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm Revel of No Shorty. Today we're going to look at this week's brand new X-Men comic book, Phoenix. And I say this week's because obviously they're going through the relaunch. Last week I reviewed X-Men #1, and I absolutely stand by my review that it's a good comic and a great jumping on point, and people if they're looking to get into X-Men should give it a try. But I honestly, personally feel like I've kind of had enough X-Men for a while now. I went through a period in my late teens and early 20s where I read all the X-Men books, including all the spin-offs and the side stories and the crossovers, and it kind of burnt me out for a good long time. And it wasn't until Al Ewing, Simon Spurrier and Kieran Gillen came in and started doing it again that I actually started paying attention and really enjoying what they did, including the Eastern Resistance crossover and Simon Spurrier's Nightcrawler stuff, all of which absolutely top-notch comic book writing. By the end of it, I was still so happy to get out of that doing that. Like, the amount of extra stuff I ended up picking up here and there just to try and make sense of the larger narrative. I'm not a big fan of this kind of shared universe thing because of this exact reason. And I think the X-Men books, or the Mutant books, however you're going to put it, bring out the worst impulses of the Marvel marketing and editing and promotional divisions where they just be like, yeah, we're going to relaunch the X-Men, that means people want to get into it, we have to buy an awful lot of stuff. And that on its own puts me off a little bit, and I do have to try a little bit harder to kind of cut through what I'm reading and be like, right, instead of thinking about this in terms of how it's going to affect other people who are reading other X-Men comic books, whether or not people are going to lose stuff because they're not reading it, instead let's just look at the comic book as it is. And I say that just to make sure everyone knows my review of this is going to be based purely on Phoenix, written by, Stephanie Phillips, I've got names here, yeah, Stephanie Phillips with art by Alessandro Miracolo, and colouring by David Curiel. And this one actually does work because it feels actually standalone. Yay! Feels like that entire intro could have just been ignored, because this is a fully standalone book, dealing far more with Marvel cosmic kind of stuff than anything else, and because of that, I actually found myself really quite liking it. It deals with really big things, and when I say big, I mean the kind of stuff which would destroy planets, or entire systems, and black holes with prisons at the edge of them for some reason. All this is to say that no matter what is going on in the rest of the Marvel Universe specifically, and the X-Men universe even more tightly focused, Phoenix feels like you can just pick it up and read it on your own, and you should as well. It is really good. Because when you want to look at the cosmic scale of the story that we're getting here, it doesn't really matter too much unless you care about the people in the cosmos. The people, the individuals, the families, any groups, organisations, individuals of intelligent sentient beings. We tend to care more about that than we would the idea of this entire planet of things is dead. What about these 3 people I know the names of? What's happening to them? That does feel more important, and we absolutely get this here. Again, playing off a little bit of what we got in the, not in X-Men, in the comic book I reviewed the other day, the Namor one, where we get more of a narrative kind of thing going over the top of it, explaining what's going on from the point of view of a character involved in it. It keeps you focused. It lets you look at these really big ideas, but understand that we're looking at people's experience of them rather than the idea itself being really big. And I said this when I reviewed Paranoid Gardens. It's all well and good telling this fantastic, amazing story, but unless I care about the people involved in the story, I'm not going to care about the story that much. This one 100% does it. The only real major criticism I've got is when it comes to the art style, unfortunately. And I say this because Miracolo is a perfectly competent, actually really damn good artist in the Marvel sphere, which means I found nothing really that would expand my expectations. It's kind of predictable, even the big, over-the-top, cosmic-level stuff, the small-type personal stuff, the action sequences, the posing, all of this is kind of what I expected it to be. That's not a bad thing. Marvel is known for hiring really good artists, but I think there's a difference between good artists and art that inspires you. And I have to then reverse that ever so slightly, because I deliberately mentioned the colorist earlier. I'm going to remind myself again, David Curiel, who does an absolutely immaculate job. At points where I find the actual individual line work and the superhero posing and the over-the-top musculature be a little bit much for my tastes, his colour make pages pop. I mean, with the Phoenix, you've got an awful lot of fire effects going on, and if you didn't have a good colorist who can show not just the depth of the flames, but also how the lighting from them affects the world around them, you're going to basically miss an entire trick, and it's going to look flat and uninteresting, in the same way that some of the actual line work does. Because of that, it does really elevate it to a point where stuff which I wouldn't care too much about actually really, really looked good. All of it comes together, and while all this is going on, and the big stories and the personal stuff, we also get some moral stuff in there as well. I like the idea of superhero comic books being this idea of, wouldn't it be nice if the world had these amazing people and doing amazing things, but they're also good for setting little moral questions in your head of, what responsibilities would come if I had the power. Would I be willing to live up to it? And in this one, we do have some pretty decent moral twists and turns to go on there as well. All in all, a really successful issue 1, and probably of the 2 I've read so far, this is the one I'd say be better if you don't want to get into the X-Men comic books, but you just want a good story. That's all my reviews for this week. There's a whole bunch of horror coming out next week, so keep tuned if you fancy that kind of thing. Until I see you then, though, look after yourself, everyone. Stay safe. Bye!